Hello there, Mad Mike here, and welcome back to the channel. And today we are going to talk about a news story that's kind of crossing with another major news story that's going on right now, world news story. And that's that the next James Bond movie, No Time to Die, which was originally slated to be released in April of this year, has had its release date moved back 7 months to November. Um, and and they're moving it back to November because of the coronavirus. So we kind of have an interesting little thing here where, like I said, No Time to Die. The main problem with this for MGM is that they're going to have to spend money for an additional 7 months of advertising. And also keep in mind the fact that they've already had their big advertising push. They had a big Super Bowl commercial. They had a lot of stuff going up to that. They have a lot of television advertising going forward as well, leading into April, because obviously it's going to be the release date of, or the was going to be the release date of the film. Um, so I don't know how much that's going to be, but if they're going to have another big push in late October and early November of next year, or of this year, uh, for this film, then that's going to cost them a fair amount of money, especially if they're going to, do all the advertising that they can. Because obviously the advertising at this point, I think, is going to take a bit of a lull compared to what it has been, and it's going to gradually build up again as it would normally leading up to a release date. Um, so basically, what MGM is doing is they're banking on the idea that delaying this film's release, mainly because of the Chinese market, delaying this film's release will lead to bigger numbers because they will have the China money, and it will counteract any amount of money they have to spend on the advertising in the meantime. Now, I think that is kind. I don't. I'm not sure what the numbers would be in terms of what they would actually be spending on the advertising for over the course of the next 7 months. I'm sure it would be something specialized because of the film, but it would be very high profile because obviously it's a James Bond film, and to be honest, it was expected to be the highest opening for a James Bond movie ever when it released in April, because it was going to be Daniel Craig's last film. You had a lot of kind of actors that were going to be in this, people that were coming back from the previous films, like Christoph Waltz, and then you had Rami Malek coming in as the main villain. So there's a lot going on in this particular movie in terms of its significance in the Bond franchise. Um, so a lot of people were very, very excited for this, and that's why the projections were so high. Now, going to the November release date, the problem you run into there is that you have Eternals, which is also releasing around the same time that month. So you're going to have two very big budget movies releasing basically weeks apart from one another, maybe less than that, maybe even 1 week. Now, I don't know per se if MGM has some kind of a link. MGM has some kind of a link to Disney. Disney has some kind of part ownership or something of them. It's not where they have any kind of control, but it's some kind of like a stake or something for certain characters that they own that go across with Disney. Um, so I'm not sure exactly how that works and how that functions, but I know MGM still acts with autonomy, at least from what I can tell. So they might be some concurrent stuff there, but regardless of that, usually whenever you do that, those two films are going to eat into each other's budgets now, or box office. So the thing with it's not exactly the same demographic, because obviously the James Bond films are not aimed necessarily at children. They're spy adventure films. They're aimed at an older audience for the most part. A lot of them are rated R. So you have that. So it's one of those where it's not entirely the same audience, but there's enough of an overlap of people that would see both that I think that it should be counted that they will eat into each other's profits, and that's in the end that will hurt both films. So even though you're going to gain the Chinese market, you're going to lose the biggest opening you could have had because of the scheduling of it. And on top of that, you're going to have to spend the advertising money. So you have a lot of concurrent stuff going on there that's just piling up. Now, the other thing this does show is that MGM is bending the knee kind of to China. And I say kind of because as far as I know, they're not altering their creative vision in James Bond of what he's doing and stuff like that. They're not changing the movie over the course of the next 7 months to have it and then releasing it to change a bunch of stuff for China. I don't think that's the case, and they're just using the coronavirus as their scapegoat. I don't think that's the case. But I think that they are willing to, they're willing to bend the knee enough where they're willing to put the money forward and lose the capital in order to kind of appease the Chinese market and get this movie out in China. And I say China mainly because that's the main market that Hollywood kind of cares about outside of the United States. Um, that's the untapped that's their final frontier essentially. That's their untapped massive because you have 1.7 or 1.6 or 1.7 billion people in China, and you have all those people that are available to buy a movie ticket. So as long as you release there's so much untapped potential. And I get the idea of that, but when you go to the point of changing the taking some of the creativity out of a creative film in order to appease a Chinese market or to appease a certain demographic of people, I don't necessarily think is a good idea, especially when they're doing it for the wrong reasons. I think that there are things that you can criticize about doing it, and there's things that you can understand about doing it, but in the end, it cheapens everything. But MGM isn't doing that. They're doing something that's kind of a step back from it, which is they're just changing this release date drastically so that they manage. They're hoping that the coronavirus thing will blow over sometime in the next 6 months, and then people will be able to go and pay tickets and go see their movie in China. I don't know if that's the case. I have no idea what the CDC has been saying in terms of a life expectancy for this thing, but it is fair to note it, and it's a mixed decision. But ultimately, it's kind of one of those things where it just it screws over kind of the fans that were waiting, to see it a little bit. But again, it's something that's kind of understandable, but it could have some, there could be some strings being pulled behind the scenes, so to speak. But that's my opinion on this. I want to know what yours is. Were you planning on going to see No Time to Die? Do you like the Craig Bond films? Are you disappointed that the movie was moved back, or do you not care? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Again, I like to know what you're thinking. Hit the bell for notifications, hit the like button, subscribe, and remember, I live my life free of compromise. Do you?